Indifference is one of the most powerful responses a person can have when dealing with someone who thrives on attention, control, and emotional reactions. There are individuals who feed off the energy of others, who require constant validation, admiration, or even conflict to feel relevant. Their power lies not in their actions alone, but in the way others respond to them. They manipulate emotions, stir up drama, and create situations where they remain the center of attention, whether positively or negatively. But when their efforts are met with indifference, when their words and actions no longer provoke the response they seek, they begin to lose their grip. People who crave control often use emotional responses as a measure of their influence. If they can make someone feel anger, sadness, guilt, or desperation, they feel powerful. It reassures them that they have an effect on others, that they still hold importance in their world. Whether it is through praise or conflict, they want to know they matter. But when they are met with neutrality, when their presence no longer disrupts, when their words carry no weight, they are left with nothing to hold on to. Indifference is not about pretending not to care. It is about truly detaching. It is not about passive aggressiveness or silent treatment, which are still forms of engagement. True indifference means no longer allowing someone to hold a space in your mind, no longer reacting to their provocations, no longer feeling the need to prove anything to them. It is not an act of spite, but an act of liberation. It is the decision to no longer give energy to someone who only takes. For those who thrive on reactions, being ignored is one of the most unsettling experiences. They are used to controlling narratives, steering conversations, and keeping themselves relevant in the minds of others. When they realize that their words no longer spark emotion, that their presence does not shift the atmosphere, that they have become just another person rather than an unshakable force, they begin to unravel. They will often try harder, pushing boundaries, escalating situations, hoping to provoke any kind of reaction, anger, sadness, even hatred. Anything is better than being completely dismissed. But when they are met with nothing, no response, no acknowledgement, no sign that they still hold power, their influence fades. The beauty of indifference is that it is not about winning or losing. It is not about proving a point or making a statement. It is about reclaiming control over your own emotions and energy. It is about refusing to let someone else dictate how you feel, how you react, and how you live. There is no greater defeat for someone who thrives on control than realizing they no longer have any. In the end, the most powerful response is no response at all. It is the silence that speaks volumes, the absence that creates discomfort, the realization that they no longer occupy space in your mind. That is the moment they understand they are no longer relevant in your world. And that is a truth more unbearable than any confrontation could ever be. The truth has a way of cutting through illusions, dismantling carefully constructed facades, and exposing realities that some would rather keep hidden. There are people who survive by distorting facts, twisting narratives, and crafting false versions of reality that serve their purpose. They rely on confusion, on misinformation, on the assumption that others will simply accept what they say without questioning it. But the moment you hold up a mirror, the moment you present undeniable facts, their power begins to crumble. They may be skilled in deception, but nothing unsettles them more than someone who refuses to be fooled. Lies are only effective when people believe them. They thrive in shadows, in whispers, in spaces where no one challenges them. But facts, real and concrete, do not bend to manipulation. They do not shift to accommodate deception. When presented clearly, without emotion, without exaggeration, facts become the most dangerous weapon against those who build their world on dishonesty. There is nothing more infuriating to someone who manipulates than a person who calmly and confidently dismantles their illusions with truth. It forces them into a position they cannot escape. They can argue with opinions, they can manipulate emotions, but they cannot erase reality. One of the most unsettling things for someone who lies to maintain control is encountering a person who does not react emotionally, who does not argue in anger, but instead responds with quiet, unwavering truth. When faced with someone who refuses to be drawn into pointless debates, who does not allow themselves to be baited into defensive explanations, the manipulator loses their strongest tool, chaos. They function best when they can keep others confused, uncertain, questioning their own memories. But a person who holds firm, who presents facts without hesitation, disrupts that entire strategy. It is not about shouting, not about forcing an admission of guilt, but about making it impossible for them to continue their deception without resistance. The reaction to being confronted with truth is often predictable. First, there will be denial. They will insist that things did not happen the way they did. They will shift the narrative, alter details, attempt to discredit the person who is exposing them. But the beauty of truth is that it does not need to be defended. It simply exists. It does not waver under pressure, does not change based on who is telling it. The more they try to fight against it, the more they expose their own desperation. When a person is truly honest, they do not need to manipulate, threaten, or undermine others. Only those who fear the truth feel the need to attack it. When denial fails, the next stage is deflection. Instead of addressing the facts, they will try to shift focus. They will bring up unrelated issues, turn the conversation toward the flaws of others, create distractions in an attempt to draw attention away from the real issue. This is a common tactic: redirect, confuse, make it about something else entirely. But this too can be dismantled with consistency. A person who refuses to be distracted, who calmly brings the conversation back to the facts, takes away their ability to escape. The truth does not need to chase them. It simply stands firm, waiting for them to run out of places to hide. If deflection does not work, they resort to playing the victim. They will claim they are being unfairly targeted, that they are being misunderstood, that others are trying to bring them down. This is not an admission of guilt. It is another attempt to manipulate the narrative. They know they cannot disprove the truth, so instead they seek sympathy. They rely on the idea that people will be more inclined to protect them if they seem vulnerable. But even this can be dismantled by refusing to engage in emotional manipulation. The facts remain the same, regardless of how they try to present themselves. The truth does not require cruelty, only clarity. The final stage is rage. When all else fails, when denial, deflection, and victimhood do not work, they lash out, they attack, insult, and attempt to intimidate. This is the last line of defense, a desperate effort to regain control by force. But anger does not erase facts. No matter how loudly they speak, how aggressively they react, the truth remains unchanged. The person who stands firm in truth does not need to engage in battle. There is no need to fight when reality is already on your side. This is not about revenge, not about exposing someone for the sake of humiliation. It is about refusing to be manipulated, about reclaiming power over your own reality. There is nothing more powerful than a person who knows the truth and stands by it. Someone who does not need to prove, to argue, to explain endlessly, because they understand that truth is not dependent on belief, it simply is. And for those who rely on lies, that is the most unbearable thing of all. Success has a language of its own. It does not need explanations, apologies, or validation from those who once doubted you. It speaks loudest in the moments when you rise above the noise, when you build something unshakable, when you prove without saying a word that you were always capable. There are people who cannot stand to see others succeed without them. They thrive on the idea that they are the reason behind someone else's growth, that without their presence, others will struggle, falter, and fail. The greatest way to disrupt their illusion is to show them that not only can you survive without them, you can thrive beyond their reach. There is a special kind of discomfort that comes with watching someone grow beyond the limits others have placed on them. It forces people to confront their own insecurities, to question whether they were truly as powerful as they believed. Some cannot handle that. They need to feel indispensable, like the foundation upon which others stand. They craft narratives where they are the reason for someone else's success, the guiding force, the irreplaceable mentor, the one who made it all possible. When that illusion is shattered, when someone they try to control rises without their help, they are left struggling to reconcile the truth. It is not that they wanted to see failure, it is that they never wanted to see independence. Nothing unsettles a person who feeds on control more than seeing someone they underestimate succeed on their own terms. Success is not just about wealth or status. It is about freedom. It is about the ability to make choices without permission, to move forward without needing approval, to live without being tethered to someone else's validation. That kind of success is a nightmare for those who once believed they had power over you. It reminds them that their influence was never as strong as they imagined, that their words, their doubts, their warnings None of it had the effect they had hoped. You did not just survive their absence, you flourished in spite of it. The key to this kind of success is not revenge. It is not about proving someone wrong just to satisfy your ego. It is about proving to yourself that you never needed them in the first place. The greatest victories are not the ones that are shouted from rooftops. They are the ones that are lived. They are the quiet moments of achievement, the silent milestones, the steady rise that needs no announcement. True success is when you no longer need to explain, when your progress speaks so loudly that it cannot be ignored. One of the most powerful realizations in life is that the people who tried to hold you back never actually had the power to stop you. They could discourage, distract, and attempt to manipulate, but they could never take away your ability to move forward. Every obstacle they placed in your path only made you stronger. Every doubt they cast upon you only sharpened your resolve. In the end, their resistance was not a barrier, it was fuel. It forced you to dig deeper, to push harder, to prove to yourself that you were always capable of standing on your own. The beauty of success is that it does not need permission. It is not something that can be controlled or dictated by others. The moment you stop seeking approval, the moment you stop waiting for someone to acknowledge your worth, you take back every ounce of power they tried to steal. You stop asking, stop explaining, stop justifying, and simply do. You build, you grow, you achieve, and in doing so you become untouchable. The ones who once tried to diminish you will watch from the sidelines, unable to grasp how you managed to rise without their influence. They will tell themselves stories, make excuses, find ways to rewrite the past to suit their own version of events. But the truth will remain unchanged. You succeeded not because of them, but in spite of them. And that is a reality they will never be able to escape. There is no need for anger, no need for retaliation. True success is the absence of resentment. It is when you are so focused on your own path that their presence or absence no longer matters. It is when you no longer need to look back because everything worth striving for is ahead of you. That is the ultimate victory. That is the moment when you realize that the greatest way to rise above those who tried to hold you down is to keep going without them, and nothing tortures them more than knowing they were never needed to begin with. There is a quiet power in setting boundaries, a force so strong that it can shake the very foundation of those who seek to manipulate and control. Boundaries are not walls built out of fear, they are gates constructed with self-respect. They are the silent yet firm declarations of what will and will not be allowed in your space. When dealing with someone who thrives on pushing limits, testing patience, and bending others to their will, nothing disrupts their game more than an unwavering boundary. For a person who is used to manipulating their way into others' lives, boundaries feel like a prison. They are accustomed to getting what they want, to controlling the emotions of those around them, to bending reality to fit their desires. But when they encounter someone who firmly stands their ground, someone who refuses to yield to their demands, it confuses them. They will resist, push back harder, and attempt to break through because boundaries expose their greatest weakness, their inability to truly control someone who refuses to play their game. The challenge with setting boundaries is not the act itself. It is the consistency required to maintain them. It is easy to declare what you will and will not tolerate, but much harder to enforce it when pressure is applied. Those who seek power over others do not accept limits easily. They will test them in small ways, subtle at first, then more aggressively when they see an opportunity. They might guilt trip, manipulate, or play the victim to make you feel as though you are being unreasonable. They may even lash out in anger, accusing you of being selfish, cold, or unkind. But that is only because boundaries strip them of their ability to dictate how you live. The true strength of a boundary is not in the words spoken, but in the actions that follow. A line drawn in the sand means nothing if it is erased the moment it is challenged. When someone sees that your words carry no real consequence, that your no is flexible, they will continue to push until they find the breaking point. But when you stand firm, when you make it clear that your boundaries are not requests but non-negotiable truths, they are left with only two choices: respect them or leave. And for someone who feeds off control, that is a dilemma they cannot easily accept. What makes boundaries so powerful is that they shift the balance of power. Instead of being reactive to their behavior, you become proactive in protecting your energy. You are no longer at the mercy of their moods, their manipulation, or their mind games. You decide what conversations you will engage in, what behaviors you will tolerate, and what level of access they have to your life. And the moment they realize they cannot override those decisions, they lose the ability to dictate how you feel. The beauty of boundaries is that they are not about changing someone else. They are about defining yourself. They are not demands for someone to be different, but declarations of what you will and will not accept. They are not about controlling another person, but about refusing to be controlled. When you set a boundary, you are not asking for permission, you are stating a fact. You are saying, this is what I require for my well-being, and if you cannot respect that, then you do not belong in my space. That kind of certainty is unsettling to those who are used to bending others to their will. The hardest part of setting boundaries is not dealing with the reaction of others, but overcoming the internal resistance within yourself. Many struggle with guilt, wondering if they are being too harsh or unkind. But protecting your peace is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-respect. Saying no is not an attack, it is a necessity. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. And those who truly value you will not be threatened by your limits, they will honor them. When you stand firm in your boundaries, you send a message not just to others but to yourself. You affirm that your feelings matter, that your well-being is a priority, that you are in control of your own life. And when someone refuses to accept that, when they try to guilt you into bending, when they attempt to make you feel as though you owe them access to your energy, that is not a reflection of your selfishness. It is a reflection of their entitlement. The truth is, not everyone will like the boundaries you set. Some will be frustrated, some will walk away, and some will try to break them down. But the right people, the ones who respect you, will understand, and the wrong ones, the ones who only valued what they could take from you, will disappear. That is not a loss, that is a blessing. The moment you decide that your peace is more important than someone else's opinion, you reclaim your power. The moment you realize that you do not have to explain, justify, or apologize for protecting your energy, you become untouchable. And for those who seek to control, manipulate, and bend others to their will, that is the most unbearable truth of all. Silence has a power that few truly understand. In a world where people crave validation, where voices compete to be the loudest, where attention is the ultimate currency, the ability to withhold it becomes a weapon unlike any other. There are those who thrive on admiration, who survive by pulling reactions out of others, feeding off the energy they create. They do not care whether the reaction is love or hatred, as long as they remain the center of focus. The moment they are ignored, truly and completely ignored, they begin to wither. It is not just about not speaking to them. It is about stripping them of their ability to control your emotions. Ignoring a narcissist is not a simple act of looking away. It is an art, a discipline, a form of self-mastery. It requires not only withdrawing physical attention, but also refusing to engage on an emotional and psychological level. It means no longer feeding their ego with anger, no longer letting their words live rent-free in your mind, no longer playing into the cycle of manipulation they so cleverly design. The beauty of silence is that it forces them to confront something they cannot tolerate: irrelevance. For a person who thrives on admiration and control, irrelevance is torture. They spend their lives manufacturing importance, inserting themselves into the conversations of others, ensuring that they remain unforgettable. But what happens when they are forgotten? What happens when their attempts to provoke, to hurt, to demand attention are met with nothing but indifference? The moment they see that their words no longer stir emotion in you, that their actions no longer control your peace, they lose their grip. It is easy to assume that the best way to deal with someone who seeks power over you is to fight them, to challenge them, to expose them for who they are. But that only feeds into their game. Even in conflict, they win because they still command your attention. They still dictate your emotional state. But when you remove yourself from the battlefield altogether, when you refuse to play, the game collapses. There is no fight to win, no opponent to manipulate, no reaction to extract. They are left standing alone, desperate for a spotlight that no longer exists. Some will say that ignoring them is a sign of weakness, that silence is a retreat. But that is only true if silence comes from fear. In reality, it is the strongest form of resistance. It is the declaration that you are no longer available for their mind games, that you have chosen your own peace over their chaos. It is a refusal to be a pawn in their world. There is a misconception that to be strong, one must always fight back, always respond, always defend. But true strength is the ability to walk away, to disengage, to render their influence meaningless. The hardest part about ignoring them is overcoming your own desire for closure. When someone has hurt you, manipulated you, or controlled you, the natural instinct is to seek justice, to prove them wrong, to force them to acknowledge the damage they have caused. But narcissists do not operate on logic or fairness. They do not care about truth. They rewrite narratives to serve themselves. And the moment you try to argue, explain, or defend, you step right back into their trap. They do not need to win an argument. They only need to keep you engaged in it. That is how they maintain control. So the real challenge is not just ignoring them externally, but also internally. It is letting go of the need for them to understand what they have done. It is accepting that they will never take responsibility, that they will never change, that they will never give you the apology or validation you seek. And that is the ultimate form of freedom, when you realize that you do not need them to. When you stop waiting for them to acknowledge their mistakes, when you stop hoping they will finally see the truth, you reclaim your power. They can no longer occupy your thoughts, steal your energy, or dictate your emotions. They become insignificant, and nothing tortures them more than that. This is not about punishment or revenge. It is about self-preservation. It is about choosing peace over conflict, control over chaos, freedom over entrapment. The best way to defeat someone who feeds off attention is to starve them of it. Let them talk, let them manipulate, let them spin their web of deception, but do not step into it. Do not give them the reaction they crave. There is nothing more powerful than a person who is unshaken, untouched, and uninterested in the games of those who seek to control them. Ignoring a narcissist is not just about silence. It is about refusing to let them live inside your mind. It is about cutting off the invisible strings they use to pull you back in. It is about understanding that your peace is worth more than their approval. The moment you master the art of indifference, you become untouchable, and for them that is the most unbearable torture of all.